Hey Mackey's Motors viewers, keeping with the steering and suspension that I've been doing with the buggies, I have a steering shaft here today that was seized up pretty good, and I will show you why and how to free them up and make them operate the way they're supposed to. Here we have a Baja Dune 150 steering shaft or steering column. It's a two-piece shaft with an upper U-joint and a lower U-joint. The lower U-joint connects directly to the rack and pinion, upper U-joint to the steering column. Most of the time we don't have any problems with this side because it's got the bushings and it's pretty well sealed. This is the one that's supposed to be exposed to most of the weather and everything. These U-joints are usually pretty stout as well. I haven't seen too many of them banged up bad beyond repair. Usually you would have to replace that whole unit. You can't just change out these U-joints. They're pressed in, obviously. You'd have to grind them out and everything. But regardless, they really get seized inside here. And this is basically the intermediate shaft. Water gets down through that center tube for the buggy stored outside or heavy moisture in the sheds or anything. And that will then put a ridiculous grip on the secondary shaft. So my students and I, with the help of several penetrating oils from PB Blaster to Deep Creep from Seafoam, we were able to get it to very slightly move out, but not much. It was taking a lot of effort and we were really beating on this yoke here. And the last thing I want to do is beat on these U-joints. They're already a little stiff. Still moves really well, but I didn't want to ruin it. So we applied a little heat. So oxyacetylene torch, my hero. All we did was just apply a steady amount of heat. I didn't get it cherry red. I just got it hot, and I could see the smoke from a little bit of whatever was left inside from our penetrating oils. And we used a hammer and a pair of pliers that we had wrapped around the bottom of the shaft, and we slowly tapped this out, and it eventually just popped right out. So this is what it looks like when the shaft is out all the way. We have a little compression spring here, and that is the full length of the shaft. And that compression spring is what's supposed to keep the tension in there so that this doesn't slide easily, but doesn't fall out. So, really simple cleanup process. I used emery cloth first, or actually we had nice Scotch-Brite pads here. It used to be nice. We had a Scotch-Brite pad using some of the penetrating oil, really scrubbed it down nice, and then I took a whiz wheel to it. Some people call them cookie cutters, but polished it up nice, and this thing now slides in and out like butter. So really happy with the results. There was still a little bit of junk up inside there. We were using rags, scrapers, just about anything I can get in there. I didn't want to file it. I didn't want a lot of play in the shaft. I want it tight. So I don't know if we can get some light in there and see. It cleaned up pretty nice. So I'm impressed. But just so you get an idea of what is inside there, what's going on, I'm going to apply a little bit of either lithium grease, or maybe I'll just use my red and tacky, just to keep it lubricated and a little bit better weather packed inside, and slap it back together, pop it in the buggy. For the steering rack, we'll get to that in 1 second. Same buggy. This is a steering rack out of that Baja Dune 150, which was a parts buggy. The frame was completely rotted out on the whole entire red roll cage portion. I was able to save a bunch of parts. The steering was the most important to me, as these tie rod ends are very stiff, nice, tight, still had some grease in them. These ends, the outer ends, are still really tight, but the rubber boots are gone, so I'm gonna end up replacing them. Tie rods were straight, as you can see. The rack is pretty good. Now this rack was very stiff, and I was in fear that this one would have the same issue, that there'd be a dead spot, that it was ground out. So same deal. Put a pair of vice grips on it, started to work it back and forth, and what I realized as I work it back and forth, some rust was coming out, more rust was coming out, but it was all just like a powder. So I was able to work it out one direction all the way out, and I did the exact same process with the Scotch-Brite pad with the students, and we scrubbed this all down by hand, cleaning it all out, continuously spraying the Deep Creep, polishing it up, and then we switched sides. I mean, went to the other side and did the exact same thing. So now we have a rack that moves in and out flawlessly. Put some red and tacky in there, that's Lucas grease. And I just ordered a set of boots from Buggy Parts Northwest. And there you go. Now this rack can go on the Crossfire because they are the same, and get it back on the road. Stay tuned, get it back together.